This is Your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lindsay Soprano. On this show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. So I'd like to start today talking about wisdom and the word calm and how we find healing after trauma and how self-care isn't selfish, but it is completely necessary. And I am the queen of missing the self-care mark. I'm working on it though. I'm working on it. And, the word calm, when you look it up, of course, I always like to look things up, but when you look at it, it really is simple. It's helping someone or yourself to be tranquil, quiet, and to be soothed. And I'm pretty sure that most people that know me or have listened to this show know that you could not define me as a calm human being. They are beautiful words and I respect and love them and I envy those that exude it. I'm not sure if it's because I'm so controlling and I want everything just this way and I'm always going, and I never take a moment to just breathe. And even when I do, because I meditate in the morning, sometimes between 30 to 45 minutes, I feel like I'm only getting like 5 seconds of calmness sometimes, It's like, oh my gosh. And as you guys know, I am boisterous, and I like to use my voice and I'm proud to be. But in meeting people like my guests today, I think by calming down just a little bit in my life, I might have a bit more room to tune out the noise and listen to the wisdom that is around me. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest today, Elizabeth Cush. We call her Biz Cush, which is like the coolest name ever. Hi, Biz.
Hey, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. She is a licensed clinical professional counselor, a women's life coach, and a business owner actually out in Maryland. And she also hosts a podcast called Awaken Your Wise Woman about exploring how to feel alive, authentic, engaged, and fully present in your life. And in her private therapy practice and through coaching, Biz helps women reduce anxiety, dear Lord, anxiety, to live our lives with more ease, intention, and purpose, and leading us towards that calm and this place for wisdom in our lives. So thanks again for being here for me and for you and for our listeners.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about calm, but also know that, I have not always been the most calm person in my life either. So there's that.
You didn't just start beautifully calm and relaxed.
No, I don't think so. Although my mom says I was a very laid back baby. But yeah, there were moments of non-calming moments in my life too.
Yeah, my mother does not share that story. I've been wild from the very beginning.
Oh, there you go.
So I'd like to get started with talking about what happened to you at such a young age. I mean, beyond young age, and how that trajected you into kind of a world of pain, and you dabbled with substance abuse here and there to numb the feelings that you were having, and which led you to some horribly toxic relationships and how you got to where you are today. So I'd like to roll out the red carpet for you. Tell us your story.
All right. Well, if people have listened to my podcast or know me, they know I share pretty openly about my story. But, I am going to be talking about some tough stuff. So if this is something that might trigger the listeners, just be prepared you can turn it off or choose not to listen. But when I was young, like 3 or 4, I was sexually abused by my paternal grandfather. And I've done a lot of healing around that. But I think what I've come away with realizing is that, well, it impacted me for a lifetime through my own mental health issues, substance use, not so great relationships. But really what the hardest, yes, that was hard. That was a terrible thing to have happen. But the adults that were in my life, my parents, aunts and uncles, people who were told about what happened, really nobody did anything about it. I mean, and this was the 70s, 60s, I guess. Yeah, 60s. So it was before I think we knew a lot about trauma and how to help kids who have been traumatized. But the reality is, the adults kind of just told us to figure it out, just to,
Just
get away
no
from them.
worries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just stay away. This is now your problem that you have to deal with and you have to control at such a young age. I don't know how you did that.
Yeah. And again, this is wisdom from today, not from then. But I also realized that those adults didn't have the skills to step up and stand up to this person. So I have some compassion for that today, as hard as it was. But so a lot of my symptoms from the trauma went unnoticed, unrecognized. I was a very anxious child and struggled with being away from home and homesickness and just feeling literally like uncomfortable in my own skin. And it really wasn't until high school when there had been a lot of changes in my life. My parents divorced when I was in middle school and then entering high school. I was really struggling and depressed and, started therapy at that point. And I would say that was really the beginning of my healing journey. But before that, I learned, I could get my hands on alcohol, or at that time we smoked a lot of pot. It helped ease my anxiety in the moment.
Sure.
So that kind of became a pattern for me as I moved into young adulthood. And even through that initial therapy, as much as that was helpful, I don't know that it necessarily healed as much as I needed to be healed. And so I don't know that I really knew like what was happening for me. One, that I struggled with anxiety until I was probably like 30s, 40s, maybe. But I had some postpartum issues. I have 3 children, 3 grown children who sadly have inherited some of the anxiety that I brought into mothering, but they have done their own work, thankfully, and are healing from that themselves. But yeah, I went back to therapy later in life. I did some therapy in college, but it just felt like there was so much unresolved for such a long time. And it got stuffed so deeply that the anxiety just was prevalent throughout much of my adulthood. So college was very hard being away from home, got tangled up in an abusive relationship at that time. And that took a long time to extricate myself from, but also caused further trauma. But
Just the snowball, God.
Yeah, which is as a therapist, it's a story I hear again and again. So if we're wounded, it's really hard to find people that can meet us at a healthy place because we're not in that healthy place, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And the anxiety part of it, I identify with, and I know we talked about it and I talk about it quite openly on this show. But you were saying something about like going away, like even for like summer camps and stuff like that, like you just wanted to be home. I just got a memory that I haven't thought of in a million years while you were just talking about a summer camp that I went to. And it was for vocal performance because I was an opera major. And I did everything in my power to get myself like kicked out and so that I could get back home. And I'm wondering, as I'm sitting here having a mini aha moment, if those things were actually me trying to get out of going places and going to unknowns and being around kids and adults that I was very, I would say, scared of to a certain extent because of stuff that happened to me. Maybe that was part of that. And wow, that's interesting. I didn't even think about it like that. If vacations, even if I'll go away like with a girlfriend for 3 or 4 days, I like as soon as we get in the parking lot, I'm like, all right, let's turn this bitch around. Let's get home. And some of that's my controllingness too, because I'm like, what's happening at home? What's going on with the dogs? Is something happening with the client? Blah 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 blah. Some of that's that narrative in that movie that keeps playing over and over and over in my head. But wow, I wonder if there's any other listeners out there that have had that same experience to anxiety as young kids, because that's crazy.
Yeah, like there was a time were like my favorite vacations were like if I knew we were going to rent the same house in the same place. So like I was like, all right, I know where I'm going. I know what I need. And definitely, I think the controlling piece is something we use to help us manage the anxiety. Like if it's all under control, then I'm okay.
All of these are labels facing out and everything's color coordinated and everything's just so, then I can go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's I've talked about it on the show before about parking anxiety, which I have where if I don't know what parking's going to be like at a place, I have like this massive, like I get sweaty and clammy and I'm stressed out. And it's such a ridiculous thing, but it's this like unknown. And then with the fact of my pain and wheelchair, perhaps having to use it, that just hasn't, it's just made it even higher and worse. But it's just so interesting how we have created these coping mechanisms for such a very long time and we didn't know that we were, and how we're now just unpacking some of these things so much later in life. And in fact, I was reading some stuff on your website and in a couple of your podcast episodes, but you'd mentioned helping women in their midlife. I would like to know what age this is.
That's a good question. It's so funny because I was putting out there to friends in the world that like I was bringing this new coaching business for midlife women. And my friend turns to me and she goes, you're not midlife. And I'm like, yes, I am.
What the hell number does it start at?
I looked it up and the official, if you Google resources say it's from 40 to 65. It's a pretty wide range of experience.
I think it's interesting though, because it is midlife. We can look back with such a different lens and a different view and a different colored, experience and go, not unlike what just happened with this camp place that I went to, the summer camp.
Yeah.
And like, what? Oh my gosh. Like I haven't thought about that in, I don't even know how long, forever. I must have been in 7th grade. Right. And so I haven't thought about that. So we push these things down, these things that hurt us a little bit when we were a kid that seemed so unbelievable to our parents and to our friends and family around us. Like, why would you throw a tantrum about that? I know exactly why I was throwing a tantrum about it right now as I'm sitting here looking back. But even then, I definitely didn't know. I mean, how could we?
Yeah, I have memories of one is a very young girl, like being tucked in at night by my mom and just being like, I need you to make it tighter. Like, I need you to tuck it tighter. Like, for me, that sense of physical safety, like being held, was something I felt like I needed. And it, like, if I had something on that was scratchy or didn't feel comfortable on my skin, it would just drive me insane. And I can look back now, even changing clothes. I have this memory of getting ready to go out. And I think a lot of what I've recognized too is I have some social anxiety, so like preparing to go out into the world and see people, it would take me, I would change my clothes probably 4 times before I'd be like, all right, I can be in this. Or I'd walk out the door and just the minute I walked into a place, have 3 drinks so I could feel comfortable.
There you go. Of course. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember leaving out because I was an insomniac as well, which of course we know is from anxiety. And my parents were giving me whiskey and honey to put me to sleep. So I was immediately starting at 9. That was what I was supposed to do. It was okay. Right. Well, that's great. Great idea, everybody. Thanks, Grandpa, for telling Mom and Dad that, So, but I would literally lay out my clothes for the week and I would have them all labeled with Monday through Friday and I'd have them all laying down on the floor. And I'd already prepared what I would want to wear, but I would always have a backup that I would have in my backpack. Because if I got to school, I'd be like, okay, so this is my Monday outfit and then my Monday backup outfit. It's just ridiculous. My dad used to come in and catch me practicing smiles at the mirror. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm practicing my Monday morning smile.
What do you mean? What am I doing? Yeah.
That is a ridiculous question. Next. But it's true. The social anxiety, nobody would ever expect that my personality type is deathly afraid to go out in big crowds. I don't like it. I don't want to be around people. I'm scared. That's why I could never be a salesperson. Once I get a lead, to me from a sales perspective. I give good phone, but I could
Yeah.
never like cold call anybody ever.
Oh my gosh.
Not,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it just makes me feel like spiders are crawling all over me thinking about that possibility. And so I give massive kudos to people that can do that. But I'm a homebody. I've worked from home for 23 years, and I'm safe here. This is my special safe place where I just feel like, back to your thing about the blanket, feeling snug, just like we do with babies. We
Swaddle
burrito them up.
Right. Yeah.
Swaddle, I'm saying burrito.
Hey, it's the same thing, right? You
I
wrap
just
the
love
layers.
Mexican food. I just can't help myself. So as you've gone through this and have, we all lose touch of ourselves, and we miss these little things that kind of have fallen away over the years, and starting to bring back things that brought us joy that somehow along the way they got lost. What do we do here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of the process for me personally has been at least allowing myself to be open to like what fell away, like looking back as a kid, like what brought me joy then. And even as an adult, like some things that I've brought into my life that really light up my life. But part of it is like values, like what really matters to me. But finding the things that used to make you belly laugh or just feel alive. And that's so personal, right? That is for each person to tap into, but also to trust that you do know you have it inside you to bring those memories back to the surface, but also to just explore. If you can't remember what you loved to do as a kid, start playing, right? Take an art class or learn how to play an instrument or get yourself out on a walk in nature. Like there's so much open to us available, especially with virtual spaces, that if it doesn't light you up, don't do it again.
I love that. Yeah, if it doesn't light you up, if it doesn't put fire under you, if it doesn't make you like, I love podcasting, right? And I know that you do as well. And we talk about the self-care. And before I went on my vacation over the holiday season, I burnt myself out so bad because I wanted to make sure that this podcast did not miss a beat while I was gone. I wanted my distribution at the exact time. I wanted to make sure that my listeners were taken care of. I wanted to make sure, blah, 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 blah. But it's a lot of work to do these and to do them well, not just sit in our basement and chit chat about stuff that nobody cares about, but like to do this as my soul food is what this is. And I'm not making a dime doing it. And I don't care because I just want to be here for the yous and the listeners and for myself. And it's such a beautiful place to be these advocates for other people as well as ourselves, and showing people that it is okay to be vulnerable and that you're safe here with Biz and Linz. Like you're safe right here. You can call us and talk to us about anything and there will be no judgment. And I think that's a really good thing for our mental health world, that this podcasting has taken off as much as it has. Because even if it's a short-lived show, maybe somebody got a lot out of that. And that's really cool. It fires me up and it lights me up. That's for sure.
Totally. I am always blown away by whether it's somebody reaching out to me for therapy or coaching and saying like, oh yeah, I heard your podcast and like, that's how I found you. I've had just listeners send me emails, and I don't get a ton of listener emails, but when I do, I'm just like, oh, somebody found me. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And recently I reached out to another podcaster who now I think lives in Australia and said, hey, I'd, love to be a guest on your podcast. Seems like we connect. And they came back to me like, hey, I've been listening to your podcast since before you changed the name. It used to be Woman Warriors, right? Used to live in DC, and one of your clients or a friend recommended. I'm like, oh, I love those connections.
The 6th degree of separation too, that comes from that. You're like, what?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It is a beautiful thing. We wouldn't have met each other had it not been for this platform. True. I know. And it's so neat. So, okay. So what have you done as far as therapies too? I mean, obviously we've got the simple things, find the things that light you up again, because we lose them. We lose them, especially as we get older, because we have to adult,
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to adult as much as we do. But do you have any suggestions and some things that have worked really well for you?
Yeah. Well, I think like deep healing doesn't necessarily come. I think some of it can come through talk therapy. I think talk therapy has a place in that. But so much of whether it's trauma, but our lived experience is stored in our bodies. And I think body work, whether it's doing yoga regularly or massage, therapeutic massage, acupuncture. For me personally, I've done craniosacral therapy, which is, I have found to be just truly eye-opening, but also releases a lot of, I think that's really helped. I think I shared with you, I had some pretty regular back pain. I have lower left back pain that would flare up and cause me to have muscle spasms and really debilitate. It made it hard to walk sometimes. I'd have to be on muscle relaxers and, mega doses of painkillers to help ease that pain. But through craniosacral therapy, I think that's released some of that tension that I used to hold in my back. It's just, but also I started a few years ago. There's a friend who is a movement dance therapist, and she has a group for healers that is called Authentic Movement. And it sounds really kind of goofy, but basically, we move with our eyes closed. We just listen to our body and what it is, what movement our body wants to express. And sometimes it's just laying still. Sometimes it's, jarring movements. Sometimes it's very fluid. You can bring sound into it. You could scream if you wanted. Sometimes you bump into the other movers. Sometimes you don't. And within that process, she's witnessing us or we're witnessing each other, and you share your experiences of how it felt, there's usually breaks and we do different things. But that's been, I think I came to this realization after being a part of that group for probably a year or two. I was like, wait a minute, I haven't had that back pain. It wasn't even a conscious, it shifted from one day to the next. It was just oh yeah, that used to be something that I always, every time I got in and out of the car, I'd have to be okay, I gotta make sure I'm getting it in the right way so I don't tweak it again. And knock wood, I have not struggled with that, not in any extended way for a long time.
That's awesome. I love the authentic movement therapy. I did something similar in college. I reflect back on it now because I was in performing arts and it was one of the classes that we took. And I'm reflecting now on yet another memory. You're just pulling out all kinds of stuff from me today. Jeez Louise. But it was exactly that. And we were screaming and we were crying and we were laying on the floor. And there were all of these different characters that the teacher would give us to play. And they ended up being who we were. It was so weird. She had just met us and she's like, this is the role you're going to play. This is who you're going to try acting out. Da, da, da. And she would play at this point in time, Alanis Morissette was she'd just come out and everybody was totally into her. We would go in there listening to some of her music. We would listen to just chanting and dancing and howling and screaming and all this stuff. And I'm just thinking about a group of midlife women in a park right now screaming and howling at each other. And people are walking their dogs going, what's going on with this midlife crisis?
Fortunately, one of the women has this beautiful yard with no houses around. Although, yes, it would be.
That woman is standing there pretending to be a tree.
It would be interesting to stumble upon us for sure.
It's like yayas, it's the yaya sisterhood. And I love that because I think it is authentic. I think that word is really important within that kind of therapy because initially you feel kind of stupid doing something like that, a little bit silly until you just let it go. And then you're like, whoa. And the amount of just deep rooted stuff that can come out of that is pretty significant, which goes straight down to the body keeps the score and the things that we've talked about where it's just stuck here. I totally believe it. It's stuck in my legs. It's stuck in my legs and it just will not get out yet. We're working on it. It's not an if, it's a when because there's no way I'm going to live like this for the rest of my life. It's just not possible. Can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
want to go jump into those leaves and stand like a tree.
Yes.
These are the things Lindsay wants to do in 2023. All right.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. And, I think what's amazing about body work is that it happens at a very unconscious level,
Mm.
that you're not necessarily aware. As I said, like I do, I wasn't purposefully trying to get rid of that pain, but through whatever the releases that were happening through that movement made it possible.
I
So,
think that's wonderful.
yeah.
And okay, so that's it. Well, yeah, and yoga and acupuncture, of course. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that we start and then we don't continue to do it. And
Oh, sure.
oh man, because we're like, oh, never mind, I'll just take a pain pill. Well, I'm not of that ilk. I won't do it. So I'm challenged because I'm in this. I feel like I'm in this. Well, midlife. Here I go. I am. I'm right there. I'm 45, right? So I'm like, okay, I can make two decisions. One is going to be I'm going to sit where I am right now. I'm not going to get any better. Or I can keep moving in my path towards healing, which
Yeah.
I thought, well, maybe I would be feeling better by now, a little bit better. I'm kind of not. I'm having days where I'm almost worse. And what
Yeah.
I found as I was closing last year, that I've taken on a lot of what people have been telling me and sharing with me in order to do the show.
Oh, yeah.
And I am not clearing. So like I might be talking about something vulnerable for me, but now I've taken on like 3 other women's something or others or another guy's just tragic stories. And I'm not doing anything to clear those out. And so that was my resolution for myself. And I don't do resolutions because they're silly, in my opinion, for me. But my intention for my year was to clear and to not take on more than I should be taking on.
Oh my gosh. And that I would say, yeah, because I mean, they call that vicarious trauma, right? Like you're taking in someone else's trauma that, whether it's their story or something you're witnessing that you're not really a part of, but you're still experiencing it. And
Right.
if you're feeling it, your body is feeling it. Yeah. I worked as we called ourselves abuse and domestic violence specialists, but in a hospital setting where we were meeting with sexual assault survivors, domestic violence survivors, and sometimes it was critical, like it had just happened. Sometimes it was in the past, but really doing crisis counseling. I did that for probably 9 years and really never realized how much I was absorbing.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I did, but I didn't do active work to help myself clear it. So I would say, yes, do that. And it's really important. And I think if you're open to it, healing can happen throughout your whole life. I really do truly believe that. I don't think there is an age that you get to a point where like you're
Uh,
done.
yeah. Well,
I
there's no
mean,
hope for me.
no, I mean, I am absolutely serious about that. Like, I think probably my deepest healing has come, since I turned 50, probably, and I'm 62 now. So there's possibilities there, I think, for everybody to do more.
Yeah, it's a story of hope and something that I really think is important for this show and for your show and quite frankly for everybody, that hope is available if you just check it out at your local library. It's there for you. You just have to believe that. And the hope is scary because we get these movies and these narratives in our mind and we're like, well, I guess this is it, because we get, especially in the chronic pain world, which I feel unfortunately comes from so much trauma. It's not just, I broke my leg kind of stuff. And I feel that we get stuck in the hopelessness category because we've tried so many things and we had a hope and then that didn't work. And then we filled our glass up again with more hope and then that just tipped over. And then you kind of start giving up because you've tried so many different things.
Oh, for
And
sure.
it's frustrating. And so I know that I got to that point where I just went, okay, that's it. I'm going to stop doing all of this stuff. No more supplements, none of this, none of that. I was doing so many different things at the same time. I would have known what was working in the first place, except for seeing my bank account continuously going down because I'm
Well,
spending
there
money
is
on
that
so much
too.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's expensive for hope. Hope can be expensive. No, but there are ways that are free. Like you're saying, you can go out in the forest and go dancing, guys. We can turn on music in our home while we're alone. I do that often. and
Yeah.
sing. And that is one of my releases. And so what I have told myself is that when I am done with each episode, I'm turning on some music that is a good representation of what we talked about. And I'm just going to belt for like a half an hour and kind of get it out and go stand outside.
I love that.
Yeah, because I have to clear. We have to.
Yes.
I like that vicarious trauma. I've never heard that terminology before. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah. And it is real. It is real. You talk, you think about first responders, people in our field, you hear a lot.
Well, I give you kudos for what you have done and where you've come from and what you're doing for all of us midlife dancers, because we need people like you. And I know this may sound terrible, but it is helpful when you meet people that have been through similar traumas. And I know that sounds like icky, but we understand, not that people that haven't can't be, sympathetic to it, but as an empath, as another thing, I feel everything. I feel everybody's everything and I want to take it all on. And, I think that that's something that we have to remember, that self-care has to be number one, has to be the tip top number one, because
it does.
We're not good to anybody else if we don't start at number one.
No, it's true. And just you talking about the filling up the cup of hope and it's spilling over, something that I don't think enough people in the healing field talk about too, is that there will be setbacks, right? You will come up against something in your life that maybe triggers a trauma or just sets you back emotionally, physically. But that level of healing you've achieved up to that point doesn't disappear. It just, you have a little blip and then you go from there and you heal some more. And I know that can feel frustrating. I think people, we want quick fixes. We want to have an answer today, but sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah. We fall 7 times, you stand up 8.
Right.
Because we do. We fall, we fail. We're just like doing everything right. And then sometimes we're like, what the hell, man? Like, give me a bone. I am doing everything right.
Yep, it's true. It is true. But we're not starting from ground zero when we do fall backwards. That's what I would say.
I love that. Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to close with our listeners?
Yeah, I would just say that, as you said, there's hope. There is possibility of healing. If you are struggling, know that you're not alone and help is available. And it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. There are resources out there that, whether it's meditation or moving to music in your home, things like that you can do to support you in your self-care.
I love that. Support you in your self-care, because that's number one, guys. It's number one. So if there's any takeaways for this year, you're number one, guys. And I'm going to be putting up some stuff in show notes and in social, her website, of course. And she's got a really awesome journal and she's got really good email marketing as well as her podcast. So there's a lot that you can get from Biz. She's just wonderful. And her websites are also beautifully designed. So that's helpful too. She's just got her whole brand is just calming and makes me want to be around her dancing like a wild woman in the middle of the park.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks for being here, Biz. You are exclusively invited to share this midlife dance-a-thon VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side. Please follow the Pain Game podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be there. Visit us at thepaingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.